Very much for your time.
Thank you
Really
so
appreciate
much.
it. That was very helpful. Cleared a few
Thank
things
you.
up for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good solution. And now we're going to move on to New Zealand Sport Fishing Council, LegaSea, NZ Angling and Casting, and NZ Underwater. So I believe they here in person or online. All right. Welcome to the Primary Production Select Committee. I believe we've got Scott. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you, Scott.
Scott Macindoe and Rowan Ashton.
Thank you. So we've given you 20 minutes, so the time is yours. How you use it, it's up to you. Away you go.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, my name's Scott Macindoe. I'm the President of the New Zealand Sport Fishing Council and a member of the LegaSea support team, and my colleague Rowan Ashton is our legal counsel from the magnificent Brookfields. We appear before you today on behalf of 40,000 affiliated members who fish, dive and care about the future of New Zealand's marine environment. We are asking you to reject this bill in its entirety. We make that submission not because we oppose reform. We make it because this bill is not reform. It is a carefully constructed transfer of power and public resource from New Zealanders as a whole to a small number of commercial quota shareholders. And it has been presented to Parliament and to the public under a false description. We have explained why, provision by provision, in our detailed and extensively referenced written submission. We commend this to you, the committee, as a resource when it is deliberating on the topics in the bill. We will address each aspect today as time permits. However, we begin with the most important thing that this committee needs to understand, the context in which this bill has arrived. The bill is a response to court rulings. In 22 and again in 25, the High Court found in Environmental Law Initiative versus the Minister that ministerial catch limit decisions were unlawful. In 2024, the Supreme Court found against the Crown in Seafood New Zealand versus Forest and Bird. These rulings told the executive plainly that the way catch limits were being set did not comply with the essential environmental sustainability requirements of the Fisheries Act. A government that respects the rule of law responds to adverse court rulings by complying with them. While the power exists to legislate over court decisions, it is one to be used sparingly and with caution. When a ministry advises a minister to change the law so that what the courts have found unlawful becomes lawful, that is not law reform. That is the circumvention of judicial oversight. It rewrites the law to make future non-compliance legal. We ask the committee to sit with that for a moment. The minister cannot comply with the purpose and principles of the Fisheries Act if this bill passes. We want to put something before the committee with absolute clarity. If these amendments are enacted, the minister will be structurally unable to fulfill the purpose and principles of the Fisheries Act 1996. This is not a political claim, it is a legal one, and we ask the committee to test it. Section 8 of the Act sets the purpose: to provide for the utilisation of fisheries resources whilst ensuring sustainability for present and future generations of New Zealanders. That is the minister's fundamental obligation. Every decision the minister makes must give effect to that. Section 9 requires the minister to have regard to the interdependence of stocks, the biological diversity of the aquatic environment, and the need to maintain the productive capacity of the aquatic environment. These are not aspirational statements, they are legal obligations. Section 10, the precautionary principle, requires that where information is uncertain, the minister err on the side of caution and take into account the biological risks of over-exploitation. Now, please, consider what this bill does to each of those obligations. On sustainability, management procedures calibrated to catch per unit of effort, an indicator that cannot reliably detect stock decline, will automatically set catch limits without the minister being required to assess whether those limits are sustainable. The stock can be falling while the procedures read green. The minister's discretion will be abrogated by a process that does not reliably tell the truth about the state of the fish. On ecological interdependence, the bill narrows the environmental factors that TAC decisions must consider to a standard list assessed only at the scale of quota management areas. Localized ecological damage, i.e., Kennebarons, juvenile depletion, habitat degradation, falls outside the required frame. The minister will be legally permitted to ignore effects that Section 9 currently requires to be considered. On precaution, the tiered information standards provisions apply weaker obligations to the stocks we know least about, precisely the stocks where Section 10 demands the greatest caution. There are 250 stocks sitting in the lowest information tier. Under this bill, those stocks receive the least protection. The precautionary principle is not just weakened, it is reversed. A minister bound by this bill cannot fulfill the purpose of the act the bill purports to amend. That is a constitutional failure, not a policy disagreement. Concentrating power, instruments, procedures, and multi-year decisions. Three aspects of this bill work together to shift decision-making power away from the public and an accountable minister, and into the hands of Fisheries New Zealand and the commercial fishing sector. First, management procedures. The bill allows preset rules operated by the chief executive rather than the minister to automatically adjust catch limits based on commercial catch rate data, catch per unit of effort, supplied by industry itself. We have submitted separately on the technical failure of CPUE as an indicator of stock abundance. The short version is this: CPUE measures how easily the fish are caught, not how many fish exist. When fleets become more efficient, CPUE stays high, even as stocks collapse. Scientists call this hyperstability. The Cray 1 Northeast Coast rock lobster fishery has collapsed based on CPUE management. In 2024, an international panel warned against CPUE-based management procedures. The bill proposes to make them the cornerstone of our national fisheries management system. Second, multi-year catch decisions. Catch limits may be set for up to 5 years with no annual public consultation. This means recreational fishers, iwi, hapu, exercising customary rights, and environmental organisations have no formal mechanisms to seek variation during that period, regardless of what happens to the stock. This is proportional allocation by stealth. No previous government has been willing to implement it openly. This bill does it quietly. Third, tiered standards for data poor stocks. The bill applies weaker obligations to stocks about which we know least. As noted above, this is the precautionary principle inverted. Removing accountability, cameras and courts. Two parts of this bill are specifically designed to reduce the ability of the public and the courts to hold fisheries decisions to account. We regard these as one of the most constitutionally offensive elements of the bill. The 20 working day judicial review limit is shorter than the time an agency has to respond to an OIA request for the underlying decision material. Only today we received under the OIA much of the data that the Cabinet based its decision to send this bill into Parliament, for heaven's sake. MPI's own regulatory impact statement recommended a minimum of 3 months. The Minister chose 20 working days. That choice was made against official advice. This committee should ask why. The answer we submit is that 20 working days is a barrier to challenge calculated to close before recreational fishing groups, environmental NGOs, iwi hapu, can obtain legal advice, gather evidence, and file proceedings. Large commercial operators with specialist legal teams on retainer can meet that deadline. Volunteer organisations simply cannot. The OIA exemption for camera footage is equally revealing. New Zealand has invested approximately $60 million of public money in an onboard camera system. When that footage was released under the OIA, reports showed a 46% increase in discards. Kingfish discards up 850%. Undersized snapper discards up 1,180%, for heaven's sake. These figures did not reveal new wrongdoing. They revealed what had always been happening, now documented. The cameras changed behaviour because operators knew footage could be disclosed. This bill exempts that footage from the OIA and creates a $50,000 criminal penalty for unauthorised disclosure. The New Zealand Law Society supported retaining OIA access. The bill goes further than even the most restrictive options in MPI's own consultation. We ask, whose interests are being served? Reducing environmental standards. The bill narrows the environmental factors that must be considered when setting catch limits, restricting them to a standard list assessed only at the vast quota management area scale. The bill legalises discards, allowing commercial fishers to return QMS species to the sea when cameras are operating. This removes the financial deterrent against overcatching. It incentivises high grading, keeping only premium fish and discarding the rest. The voluntary measures provision allows industry agreements to justify catch limits higher than biological evidence supports. In the Cray 2 rock lobster fishery, voluntary measures were used to delay a mandatory 60% TACC reduction. The voluntary offer involved shelving catch entitlement that was largely uncatchable anyway. The delay was costly. Entrenching commercial advantage. The enhanced annual catch entitlement carry forward provision allows a 75% quota shareholder majority to roll over unlimited unused catch entitlement, including where fish simply were not caught because market prices were unfavourable. There is no fisheries management rationale for treating market conditions as grounds for increased future catch. This is a windfall for large quota holders funded by the public resource. The alternative deemed value rates for deepwater freezer vessels creates a two-tier compliance regime, reduced financial penalties for large capital-intensive operators catching inshore species as bycatch. This reduces their incentive to invest in selective fishing methods and creates a different standard of accountability for different classes of operator. Our ask to you, the committee, this is not a package of 11 individual reforms. It is a single coherent project. It weakens standards, it concentrates power, it removes accountability, and makes it harder for the public to know what is happening or to challenge in court. We have watched this project advance, retreat, advance again for decades The proposals in this bill are not new. They have been tried before in earlier forms under earlier governments, and they have been stopped by public opposition, by the courts, and by select committees willing to do their job. We are here today because we represent 40,000 New Zealanders who fish, who dive, who care about what we leave for the next generation. They are not quota shareholders. They do not have lobbyists or former officials advocating for them. They have us. And we are telling you plainly that this bill does not serve their interests and it does not serve the fish. We ask this committee to reject this bill in its entirety. We ask you to direct officials to bring forward legislation that genuinely applies the precautionary principle and genuinely considers the interests of all New Zealanders, not just those who hold quota. And we ask you to consider why, 40 years after the quota management system was introduced, we are here again defending the same ground against the same proposals. The fish cannot speak. We can, and we are asking you to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to questions. Does the committee have a grant?
No question. Yeah, go, Scott. I've got a question around consultation. It's been one of the topics that's come up from various submitters. Were LegaSea involved, or the Sports Fishing Council, either or, in the consultation process for this bill? And if they were, what was your involvement, please?
We had no involvement in the promulgation. We were, like the rest of New Zealand, on the receiving end of what was known as the reform proposals last year in February. We submitted our submission to that those reform proposals on the 11th of April. It's 60 heavy-duty, painful pages. Judging by the bill that we're now discussing, I don't think anyone's read those 60 pages. They're compelling. The arguments in those in that submission are irrefutable as to why much of what we're currently debating ought not to go forward into fisheries amendment legislation. Subsequent to tabling that submission, and I put it to you that that's the sum of 25 years of full-time focus on this reform aspiration of the fishing industry, of the quota owners. We've heard nothing, zero curiosity from officials. No, I challenge the officials to come up with any tangible inquiry on or invitation on us to come and talk about this stuff. So the answer, thank you for your question, Grant, is no, we've not been involved in this proposal.
Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you, Grant. Good to see you there. And can't see anyone.
We can see you. You're right.
With your tangata whenua hat on, do you think there is any place for cultural considerations? It's currently worded as economic, cultural, and social considerations to be added to the biological ones. Do you think there's any? You made it clear there's no case for the economic and social ones trumping the biological reality of how much the fishery can handle in terms of allowable catch. But do you think there's any place for cultural considerations? Some people suggest that there is, as alongside the biological ones.
Most definitely. However, we have a ministry who have steadfastly refused to give effect to some of the really good parts of the 1996 Fisheries Act. Section 12(1)(b) shall have particular regard to kaitiakitanga. It's just embarrassing the way they've been able to get away without any real serious consideration.
Yeah. So overall, that amendment is not favoured by you guys. You've made that clear in your submission. But if there was some consideration by us as a committee, then perhaps the cultural one is the credible one, but not the social and economic.
If it's there's nothing trumping sustainability. There's nothing trumping the well-being of the fisheries. Social, economic, cultural, all sides of the same square. If the stock is in jeopardy, if it's below the hard limit, and we're all going to find out about one of those most critical key stocks that is below the hard limit in the next few weeks, we've got to stop fishing.
Yep. Very clear.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your submission. It was very clear. And I think the committee will take that into account when we deliberate.